Yeah.
I was a part of CTA in the beginning, and so it's been amazing because it's been 4 years now. And so to watch it grow over for those 4 years, we went from like a handful of network um, members of the network to like, tripling that and quadrupling that now. So it's been really amazing to watch it grow and
Mm,
start to develop some, branches and be a really good
yeah, it's
resource.
impressive.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're very happy
Yeah.
with how it's going. Leslie, I don't know if you wanted to.
Yeah. I'm trying to get Jen the link again.
Oh, okay.
She is struggling to find it here. Let me paste it in here.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just trying to send it to her. Oh, here she is. Good. Here's our glitchy Monday morning for everybody. Hi, 97 cents. Hi, Ray. Nice to see y'all. And I'm Leslie Elliott Boyce. I'm speaking with Christine Siefenwalk, and we have Jennifer Friend logging in, and we are here today with Anthony Rispo. And Anthony is the host of Discourse Lab, the podcast. And I had the opportunity to speak with Anthony a couple of weeks ago now. It was a really, really good conversation. I enjoyed it tremendously. So I'll link that in the description once I get the description updated later. Hi, Jen. Nice to see you today. You have
No,
bangs. Beautiful.
thanks.
I'm gonna do another shameless self-promotion here. I'm so bad at self-promotion, but I'm giving it a try. So I have all these mugs on my Etsy. So there's these cute little ones. There's more detailed ones. I just put this Etsy up this weekend.
Oh,
So
they're beautiful.
They're
Yeah.
oh, thank
beautiful.
you. Thank you. So if you guys want Christmas gifts, I'm going to be updating it probably today or tomorrow, adding some more. So please consider a mug. I'll put some more things up too. I've got all kinds of ceramic things in the works. If people like oil lamps, I've been making oil lamps too. They're
That's awesome.
yeah, they're really pretty. I really enjoy the design, but I don't know how many people
Uh,
use oil lamps these days.
How long does it take to make a mug?
Uh, Gosh, all told, it's a couple of days because you first
Wow.
have to throw the clay form, then you let it dry, and then once it's sort of semi-dry, they call it leather hard. You can trim it, and that's when you take it from being kind of a blobby cylinder to adding a foot and making sure it's nice and smooth and uh mug like. And then you add the
Mhm.
handle on, which is you have to pull your handles separately out of clay and then
Wow.
add those, attach them, and then it takes another day to dry so that they can really join. And then with these kinds, I paint on the underglaze and then carve it. And the carving of something like this takes 2 or 3 hours.
Wow.
Wow.
And then you have to bisque fire it, and then you get it back, and then you glaze it, and then you have to glaze fire it. So it's a
Wow.
from the beginning to the end of making one of these is probably a couple of weeks, depending on the kiln firing schedule at the studio where I take them because I don't have my own kiln. So, but the
That's
actual like
impressive.
handiwork time, probably about like 4 hours, I'd say. 4 hours of like
That
actual working on each one. So
that's incredible.
it's fun. Yeah, I kind of got obsessed when I started doing it. So that's my
Yeah.
little David, I will give you a link. I'll put it, it is under Yay Rain Art on Etsy. And I'll stick a link in the description after I'm reading you guys' comments. That's cool. Yeah, Student of Rhythm oil lamps. They are, I don't know what use they have for people except emergency lighting, but they're pretty.
Hmm.
So they're cool. Solid Ground is our live stream we do every Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific. We often have a guest with us. We're delighted to have Anthony here today. If you guys are interested
Thank you for
in,
having me.
yeah, thank you for being here. And if people are interested in the kinds of discussions that we have on our live stream, we have a discussion and support group that is fantastic. And you guys are welcome to join us. It's Solid Ground Support on Substack if you'd like to join. And we're starting a new thing where after the live stream, we're going to extend the conversation off the stream and off the recording, just privately with our members. And so that is, thank you, David. He says, I love your shit. Thank you, David. That's lovely. Uh, and student of rhythm, you have a sort of man cave, so you might like an oil lamp. Okay, cool. Well, maybe I'll put some up for sale. Right now, I don't have any up listed. So yeah, we are going to extend the live stream. Or the discussion from the live stream to bring our members in. I'm thinking I had said an hour, but I'm actually thinking we're probably just going to do a 30 to 45 minute because it's hard to ask people to spend a full 2 hours plus. So for guests, I think we'll be able to get our guests to stay. If we say, could you hang out with us for an hour and a half versus could you hang out with us for 2 hours? So that's what I'm thinking, but we'll talk about it with the group and see what people are thinking. So Anthony, oh, my shirt, David. Oh, you or was it Christine's? Thank you. That that's very funny. Or maybe it could be Anthony's shirt. It's a very nice shirt. Or Jennifer's sweater is very nice too.
Mine is pretty
No,
mundane.
I think this sweater is totally dysthymic looking. I think
Why?
it's horrible, but it's the color and it's this, you can't really tell on screen, but it's this kind of creepy fabric. And I think it makes me look like a crazy old cat lady, but I just really am kind of hunkered down and comfy today. And so I'm wearing a scary sweater, so I
I
apologize.
love the sweater. I
I don't
actually
think
love
it's
the
Thank
scary.
you.
sweater.
I do too.
Thank you.
Jennifer,
No, it's very earthy. It's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just sent you an Instagram reel, Jennifer. Um,
Okay.
it's this lady and she's saying, you're gonna get old and you can either look old or you can look weird. And so she chooses to look weird and it's just
I
so
love
cute.
it.
And I was like, all right, I'm going with weird. I want
I'm gonna do weird too. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, so Anthony, we talked about so many interesting things the last time you and I met. I thought that your thoughts on identity fusion were really
Mhm.
interesting. And then we got into some discussion around sort of the false teaming of the idea of the community when you talk about like the Black community
Mhm.
or the gay community. And we have this sort of this flattening of people
Yeah.
when we do that. And we talked about the search for purpose. And Christine popped off. She'll probably be right back. We talked about the search for purpose and how justice movements fulfill
Mhm.
some of that and might be representative of a broader existential issue. And I have a lot of thoughts still in a lot of places where I'd love to continue those. But what stayed with you, or what are some ideas that you have for things that have been percolating and that you'd like to discuss?
Yeah, I loved that discussion. It really generated so many different ideas for me uh, about the issue of identity fusion and how we cling on to groups. And not only, I mean, like, you also think about it from a more neutral perspective, not only cling on to groups uh, as per a negative connotation, but how we identify with groups, which is actually a healthy thing. I mean, I wanted to say in that episode, to detriment to some degree for me, I have always been the kind of person that would be deterred or feel like not really interested in attaching myself to a group. And it is very healthy for a kid, especially like when I was a little kid, I didn't really like that feeling. And it could have served me well had I been nudged a little bit more into a group. But the opposite end of that is the sort of idea of fusion, uh, which is very specific in the psychological literature, social psychology. It's not just where you really identify with a group and you feel really connected to it, or you feel support, maybe a church community, a sports group, or whatever. But it's this inextricable link between yourself and the group where there's this oneness, that can be different, that's not differentiated. Um, and I think I used a kind of an example where it's like you're in the movie theater and you're watching a movie play out, and you're watching the characters, and you feel connected to the characters like you actually are one of the characters, or you're in the movie and experiencing the sort of general plot, and and then you come out of the movie, and slowly but surely that separates, you separate from that feeling, and you get back to everyday life. What am I going to cook for dinner? But for people who are fused, it's like they're still in that movie even when they drive out of the parking lot, and for a very long time thereafter. And so it's it's interesting because I think it's something that we see and happen a lot more with younger people and college students especially. And I saw that at Columbia University when I was there. I just graduated in May, and for 2 years I saw that during the protests, is students fusing to the Palestinian cause, meaning they identified with the suffering of the Palestinians, by virtue of the fact that the Palestinians were the brown people and the Jews were the white people. And so it's a very interesting thing that you see in the literature, and this specifically white students from Western campuses fusing with um, people overseas who have a certain kind of gripe with uh, whatever power they're confronted with, that is more or less synonymous with Western civilization or imperial power. So it's this kind of like by proxy. It's kind of like you identify by proxy. It's not this deep connection that really is substantive per se, um, but it's just this sort of outsourcing of autonomy to a group. And um, I think that, also there's like another side of it that could be helpful. The literature also talks about how it could be adaptive and get people to go from one, say experience tragedy, and come pull through to the other end, um, as a group. And obviously you need to be able to identify with the group in a very strong way in order to feel connected. But I think we've been seeing it in the more pathological sense, in my observation at least. I think lots of us have observed this, but like I've been sort of stuck on the idea that this identity fusion effect has been occurring at the more pathological end of things. Maybe it's just because I saw it up close and personal, um, but it's definitely it definitely seems like, at least in my experience at Columbia, watching students feel or at least appropriate the suffering of people they don't even know.
I think it's a little
Uh,
glitchy
um,
right now. Are you guys getting that too? Okay.
Yeah.
so for listeners watching diffusion psychological construct, you can see a little bit of a breakdown.
No, Anthony, we're having a little trouble with your feed right now. I don't know if there's a Wi-Fi setting you can switch or something. We're having just a little trouble there. But I got most of what you said, and
Oh, oh
it
no.
just started to kind of
Okay.
lag at the end there. I don't know, Jennifer and Christine, do you have any thoughts on that? Have you?
I was thinking about how when somebody gets their identity entwined with their opinion on anything, they will then defend that opinion just to the death, because they feel like if you contradict their opinion, you're sort of delegitimizing
Mm,
them and their existence. And it's this really kind of ridiculous egoic state that humans are capable of
mm,
getting into. And I think it causes just, a lot of problems. And there's there's a lot of reasons for our political polarization. I think it's, in large part driven by the media, but also I think it's tapping into that egoic state of, well, these are my beliefs, and therefore this stuff is me and it's true. And if you contradict it, then you have a, different, more nuanced viewpoint, then you have to be um, my enemy because you're sort of a threat to my sense of who I am. And I think it's a dangerous way of thinking.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I would agree. And I think there's a component, especially with the younger folks, of kind of wanting a sense of belonging. And I think in some ways, fusing to a belief or to a movement gives them a sense of belonging to a group of people. And in a lot of ways, I don't, with social media being part of the problem, I'm sure there's a lot of disconnect. I mean, growing up, I
Mhm.
remember, you know, we had a friend group, but my friends lived on the same street as me, and we'd, go and ride bikes and do whatever together. And even growing up through middle school and high school, my friend group pretty much was kind of the same. I don't know that that would have been the case if we'd had social media and all of us were behind the screens all the time. There was a lot of, interaction, engagement in person that kind of strengthened those bonds. So I think there's some piece of it. I mean, I don't know how much, maybe 10%. I don't know, maybe less, but there's some piece of it where these kinds of movements create that sense of belonging, create a sense of family, create a sense of being part of something. And that is very powerful also, because if you kind of move away from that, you're not just leaving your own personal beliefs, are conflicting, and you're sort of pulling away from that. You're pulling away from people, and you're pulling away from a group. And I also, have talked to multiple people when I was leaving my teaching job who kind of said, well, I don't really believe in all this stuff, but it's, what we have, and I really like who I work with, and I want to be on the same team. And so I think that's
Uh,
dangerous, but I can see the reason that somebody may, develop that. And I don't know if that becomes deeply embedded in their identity, or if that's just something that's very surface level, and there's somebody else completely in front of other people, etc. But I do think that sense of belonging has a place here. I'm just not sure how much of it is that.
Something that occurs to me is that the the way things are, like when you say there's people who don't necessarily agree with it in your faculty, for instance, Christine, but this is what we're doing, so we're going to do this thing. There's that's that attitude is important for group cohesion and functioning.
Hmm.
And that's kind of been, I mean, like if you we have this breakdown in norms that's been going on for a while in our culture. Like I think we maybe have this tendency to over idealize a certain point in the past as the way things were, trademark. And things are actually much more fluid, moving through time and
Hmm.
and always changing. But we have a sense that there was this way things were and now they're different. And I think part of that is because of the rapidity of change in the technological era when we're so interconnected with other people. So we're exposed to tons of different possibilities and potentials. But if you think about humans being a herd animal, and you think about herds or
mhm.
flocks, if the flock of birds became a bunch of individuals that started to second guess everything and go, why are we going over there? Why are we doing that? Then you just have chaos. You'd have everybody doing the thing that they thought were right and trying to corral small groups of them into following this way or that way. You'd have tons of offshoots and chaotic movement instead of a fluid whole. And so I don't really know what the answer to that is. I just think that it's an interesting thing to contemplate, that ability to go along with the way things are, put that in quotes, the way things are, is actually a really necessary part of our social evolution or apparatus.
Evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, First of all, before I talk, is my connection okay now? I know I haven't
Mhm.
really.
It
Okay.
seems fine right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if any. I think an interesting thing to watch would be a few weeks ago. Was it a few weeks ago? The Free Press released conversation between Barry Weiss and Jonathan Haidt on his book, The Anxious Generation, and he really went a bit deeper into the claims that he makes, because there are a lot of people that push back saying this is not causal, you can't infer, you can't extrapolate, you're sort of meshing a bunch of data points together to create some kind of theory. But when you listen to him and you really hear how Barry Weiss sort of plays devil's advocate sometimes, or when you kind of look into the trends, it becomes almost impossible not to see um, how clear it is that there's certain period of time when the smartphones came on the scene, and then you start to see a decline in mental health, the stats around depression, and especially in that cohort, that young of people who came online into their adolescence or while they were developing through adolescence. And um, I guess when you put two and two together, you can see that this is such an important time in childhood and adolescence, being you're learning how to negotiate with your peers, these little nuances that you experience in person, collaborations, play. You're architecting your neural structure, like how to really be in the world, and the costs and benefits that you encounter in microseconds. And I do think that, and I even see anecdotally, I mean, I even see my nieces and nephews like little compromises to that infrastructure, more so than it just being another thing that's kind of happening. I think that it's more than that. And to Height's point, I will basically, paraphrase very much so in a condensed way, that childhood is being compromised, and we're seeing the downstream effects. Well, it was compromised then, and we've seen the effects of it in 20-something-year-olds now. Um, and I think for a lot of us, even who went through adolescence without smartphones, it has somewhat compromised our attention, our capacity to be in a situation in discomfort together. Um, and I don't know, maybe this is a bit of a detraction, but I think it sort of mixes kind of well with maybe the affective state, the general affective state of younger people, and even generally adults to some degree who are hooked online these days, and how we sort of ameliorate that feeling by attaching to a certain identity that makes us feel like we belong, whether or not it's good. Um, I think we go lean into that need for belonging, which we do have. It's part of us as social creatures. But where we latch onto it, I think, or how we latch onto it, is what I'm interested in. And seeing so many people thirst for that connection, for real connection, is still it's an open question now. I don't have the answer to it, but I think that there's been so much of a compromise in that department that we're not seeing people connect fundamentally in an adaptive way, is what I'm trying to get at. And I don't know how to make sense of that entirely right now because we're in it. But I think watching that interview was a really, gave me a lot of clarity, sort of solidified how I kind of feel about his claim, Height's claim about childhood having been compromised because of these smartphones. And I emphasize because, which is a strong claim to link to causality, but um, I don't know. What do you all think about that? Have you read The Anxious Generation, any of you, or any thoughts about that linear sort of that effect?
I haven't read it, but I
Hmm.
do have followed some of what Haidt talks about around smartphones and childhood, and tend to agree that
Hmm.
it's detrimental. It, I think a lot of our problem is overthinking.
Hmm.
Speaking as somebody who sits around and talks to people and thinks about things. Um, I think that a lot of what we've done is to elevate the world of possibility over the concrete. And if you get stuck in a perfectionist mindset, thinking I can make this different, I can make this better, what if I did it this way? You can get lost in eddies of possibility and fail to take any action. And part of what we're doing with kids when we put them on phones is we're giving them that possibility space, but it's somebody else's imagination, and they're not getting to enact their own experiential processes. And so it's time that's being stolen from the active experience of living.
Yeah, and I actually, you just said something that I want to expand on what I said before. The access is so pronounced, like the access to what's happening all around the world. And if you have more of that egalitarian mindset as a kid, especially specific to college campuses, you get a lot of people who end up there, students who end up there who are of that ilk, who kind of think that way. And if you're so hyper connected, and then you're sort of prescribed, well, this is kind of what you ought, they have this ought is ought paradigm in their minds, or kind of already. Um, and it's like, if you're seeing, uh, what's her name? The climate activist, I can never remember on the spot, Greta
Mm-hmm.
Thunberg, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And all these other things happening overseas, and humanitarian crises. Um, it's almost like you're implicitly, or you're sort of experiencing this top-down mandate that's tapping into your moral proclivities. Like, we have to fix these problems. This is our job. Um, we're educated. We know better. We have to do that. And then they get so engulfed in this mindset that I understand that this happened years ago too, in the 60s. I know that this is not new, but I just think the degree to which it's been accentuated is alarming, and through mediated by the or moderated by the technology. And it just was so clear, watching students like tie themselves to fences and scream and ask for water when they didn't really need it. I mean, it's just, there's this something happening in, and it's more than just that. It's more than just the protests. It's this. It goes back to. I think that I wonder what you all think about um, formation of the self, like into becoming individuated. All these different parts of a person coming together to form to become a full person. I wonder if you think that's actually happening. Um, if that's really happening these days. If people are really becoming, a full individuated kind of person, or if people are going into adolescence and adulthood, young adulthood, sort of fragmented. I mean, it's a bit of a big question just to even bring up in my head. I don't know if you've thought about any of that. So,
I mean, I don't think the individuation process is happening in a, you know, positive way at all, because I think, part of the individuation process is that you're able to have, dynamic, ideas and different thoughts and different processes and different ways of looking at things, and still be able to connect with people, even if you don't agree, or even if those people tend to have a different way of seeing the world. It doesn't necessarily mean that because they don't believe what you do, that they're not holding a candle for you in that regard, that they're bad, or that there's nothing you share in common, or that you are not, there's no relationship. It's that enmeshment that's, I think, a
yeah.
big problem. And when you're individuated, you're able to be close with people or have intimate relationships without getting enmeshed,
Mm.
with there being a clear idea of myself, yourself. And I think that the process is completely interrupted.
Jennifer, what do you think?
I'm just sitting here thinking about that process of individuation, um and I kind of feel like it happens at different times in life in different ways because there are things that sort of challenge it. Like there's a pull towards enmeshment or individuation, and then things in between. And I feel like, and I don't know if this is just, I don't know, me paying more attention, but I feel like there's more group think and more insistence on sort of purity tests for people. And you have to prove yourself by holding all of these particular views. And if you don't, there's going to be a very heavy social toll
Mm.
um, of isolation and rejection. And so I'm wondering if that makes it harder for people to feel safe, to form a sense, a separate sense of self, in addition to a sense of being connected to peers. I mean,
I
how
think
do you
so.
do that? Like, I've heard
100%.
of people on college campuses where they've had to leave campus because they questioned things like very basic things like America is a racist country.
Mm.
And I've heard of people being just so viciously attacked and then isolated and sort of ostracized by their peers that
Mm.
they've had to leave school. So, how are you to really formulate a sense of self and your own opinions if that risks complete isolation? Because we are social creatures, and it is wired into our brain that we need to have peer relationships for survival. So
I think
I
the
think it,
options are limited. It's like
yeah,
you go along with or you're not a part of. There
Mm.
is no, it's very black and white. I don't think there's a lot of space for nuance or different, ways of being. It's you go along with this particular prescribed set of
Mm.
beliefs and you do that, then you're a part of us. You don't go along with this, then you don't belong. So somebody had to leave school over that, completely, getting dismissed or whatever, from kicked out of their group, for having a different thought process or a different set of beliefs. um,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
the black and white and the rigidity, I think, is hugely problematic.
Well, it's
yeah. And in
interesting.
2020, 2021, there was, I think, a sort of witch hunt atmosphere of let's find the racist. And,
Mhm.
just that whole societal urge towards identifying racism in somebody else and sort of going after them, and what that has caused and what that has cost us. And I'm really glad that I was older when that happened
Mhm.
and had
Mhm.
more experience.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any friend of Kevin Bacon says individuation is driven by commitment to purpose. People are starving for purpose in our modern era. I
Mm.
think, you know, it was really it. This book made a big impression on me. John Taylor Gatto, Dumbing Us Down. It's a collection of his essays. It's fantastic. He's very critical of the compulsory education system that we've put into place and what it serves as and how it molds people, how it doesn't serve to elevate a populace with good education and skills and agency. It just sort of morphs people into a compliant Borg. And so we have these socialist institutions like K through 12 education, and then college is an extension of that. Now that college is expected to be done, you have to do it. And in order to do it, you have to do it in order to be a viable person, in order to be considered intelligent and have this base level of qualification and competency as far as the rest of the world is, or the rest of society sees you as being competent. So you must do this, but for most people, this involves a massive debt load that they're going to carry forward for a long time. So you're you're buying in and continuing on, and it's this socialist institution that's just churning out compliant Borg members,
Mhm.
right? And it is it is creating these walls of structure and safety around people that involve the way that you think, and you're expelled forcibly if you don't think right, or you're chastised brutally if you don't think right, if you don't follow you've got your compliance systems in the early grades, which are like bells and grades and enforcement, and you go to detention if you don't do things right. So you've got all these compliance systems. And then later on, the young adults in the institution, when you get to college, have so internalized those compliance enforcers that they become the enforcers themselves of each
Mhm.
other, and even of the faculty. If the faculty seem to be too free thinking, they're going to come in and enforce. And so you have this intense socialization process that doesn't leave room for expansion and individual creativity. It's just pushing more and more Borg. And
Yeah.
it also represents a sort of extended adolescence where the individuals in that system are not, they're in sort of a perpetual state of welfare uh, reception. They're receiving a lot of their structure and their goals from outside of themselves. So there's an external locus of control. And so when you say, do people individuate? People are being trained to not individuate. I mean, that's the teaching. That's the baseline teaching, is you're not to individuate. You are all to be, it's a complete system of enforcement and tattling and compliance and
Yeah.
codependency in that way. So I would say that the struggle to individuate within that system is harder than it would have been prior. I mean, and in return, you have more safety and more structure in life, and there's not as much left to chance
That's the
if you
reward
do this.
mechanism.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's what reward, and what you're saying, it's hitting so many different angles because you can look at exactly what you're saying and extend that to, and perhaps it is just synonymous with the bureaucratic system that we've been living under for a very long time, since the 60s, really. There's a book I'm getting through called The Great Society, looking at Lyndon B. Johnson's Great Society, um, about the welfare state, and Moynihan's warning, projecting into the future that this would have deleterious effects on the um, demographic that it purported to uh, help, and of course it did, and then some, like Black families experiencing fatherlessness or single parent homes, and this actually um, happened, it just so happened to be the case for white families too. So just these instant tactics to help a certain real world suffering, but planted or implanted more long term, having extremely negative effects and being dressed as this virtuous moral script that everybody has to accept as the right thing, like the projects. I mean, I know there's a Milton Friedman documentary I just came across last night. I don't remember the name of it. I saw a clip of it, and it was 40 seconds of the clip, and everything he said in just 40 seconds in that clip just make it, it's timeless. It's timeless because kind of what you're saying, Leslie, it's this structure where you set people up, and the people at the top, they decide, what, when you get your check, how to spend it, where it goes. They're the ones who, it's the paternalistic model, and you completely vanish the s- circular, the uh you vanish the family unit. You very actually, just a quick side note, I don't want to say too much about it because I can't remember the name of the, I'm really batting 1,000 with not remembering things today, but there's an article by Fairbairn um back in the 20s or 30s. He wrote an article about this very phenomenon of the paternalistic communistic structure essentially eradicating the family system and how important the family is, and but he makes all these sort of truth claims and suppositions about um, how basically what we're seeing today, how when government becomes the paternalistic figure, uh, then you really compromise the structure of a society, a healthy society. And I think that bureaucracy, I wonder what you all think about this. I'm sort of all over the place, but I'm jumbling around to try to get to this point, is that what we're seeing, what I think we're seeing today, people freaking out, for instance, about the professional uh, categorization of nurses as it relates to receiving money from the government for tuition. I think people are freaking out because they're so used to this maternal paternalistic bureaucratic structure that sort of always had their back, and um but they feel it coming undone, and we're getting kind of back to a free market sort of approach. We're getting back to um, a system that actually um, not only rewards but uh, kind of promotes individuation, like the individual, promotes free thought, autonomy. And for a lot of people, I sense that this is felt as a threat because they're coddled, and they feel like everything they've known thus far about the bureaucracy that we've lived under. I say the bureaucracy because I'm sort of totalizing it as this one thing with the same effect, just sort of infantilizing people. I think that when you take a bottle away from a kid, I mean, that's what it seems like what's happening. So it always makes me feel like we're living in this twilight zone when people cry things like fascism or dictatorship. And there are criticisms I have about the current administration, um, but generally speaking, um, when it comes to things that concern how government money is used to subsidize education, and people don't realize that, well, the cost of education is so high largely in part because the government subsidizes education. So it's like when you try to get people to understand that, um, they have this aversive like a reaction. They don't understand that the thing that they want, very likely, you know, the cost of education, for instance, being more affordable, the thing that they want actually could be dealt with if we pulled away from the thing they're used to. Um, and so I don't know. I feel like because we're living in such a in it right now, I can't. I feel like I'm still developing my thoughts on it. But altogether, it's this bureaucratic, paternalistic um, dependency that I think people have mistook for America, for freedom, for you know all that stuff. And I think you see this everywhere. You see in slogans, like for instance, and then I'll stop, is another thing part where this carries over is stigma, like anti, stigma campaigns. We see generally the literature on stigma showing that lots of these awareness campaigns don't actually help. And it's like, why are people so attached to that as this unilateral approach? And I think it's because they just buy into this, again, this protective, paternalistic system that tells them, this is what's going to make society better, and here are the costs, and here are the benefits, and should you have another view, then you're considered a dissenter, and a dissent is not good because it disrupts everything. And so you never get to ask questions, you never get to challenge the system, you never get to do any of those things. And but I think that we're in that moment where people are doing that, and it's making a lot of people very uncomfortable. So
I'm thinking of this metaphor of the birds, like a flock of birds, and bureaucracy or institutional control would be, no, we're flying in this direction. We're just flying in this direction, and it's been put into place. So we're going, you know, whatever direction it is. And we have our enforcers that make sure that everybody flies in that same direction. So the flock is aligned with the enforcers that make sure we stay on track. and they
Mhm.
can't make decisions. So they can't react to things if there's a need to go a different direction. We can't adjust. We're not flexible. We're just going in this direction. And if you go in any one direction long enough, it's going to lead to trouble. It's going to lead to problems. There's inflexibility, and that's kind of where we're at right now, is
Mhm.
with this how much we depend on institutions from the government in many, many forms. I think about licensure, for instance. That's something that comes up. Is we were just talking about uh, support or case consult groups through CTA. I was asking Christine, do you guys require everybody to be licensed? And she said, no, professionals in this field are welcome, and students as well. We're not going to police licensure. And I think about how the licensure requirements, this is an example I haven't used in a long time, but I've talked about it before. IBCLC is the International Board of Lactation Consultants or something like that. And I remember a long time ago, I spent years breastfeeding. I mean, I have 4 kids, and
Mhm.
I can probably tally up how many years of my life I spent breastfeeding. It's like 9 or 10 years. And and I worked in a primary care, and one of the clinics where I worked for 6 years had a lactation consultant on staff. And I thought really briefly, this was in between law school and graduate school. I thought, I wonder if it would be a good career to become a lactation consultant. That would be really cool. And I remembered reaching out to the La Leche League when I was a young mom. And I thought, I could help mothers do that. That might be really a rewarding career. And then I looked into what it takes now, and it's like a doctorate. I'm not even
Mhm.
kidding you. It's like 6 to 8 years of school in order to get board certified to be a lactation consultant. And I thought, well, that's just
Wow.
an insane level of degree inflation. And there might be a lactation consultant that comes in and argues with me that that's all very necessary, but I don't care. I do not think that that is necessary. I do not think that that is
Mhm.
necessary.
Yeah.
You know, and with counseling, which is another area, it's not even called counseling anymore. It's therapy. It's clinical mental health therapy, it's or counseling, CMHC or whatever, but they don't call themselves counselors anymore. They just call themselves therapists. And it is this um, really tightly controlled thing where if I were to talk with people in an open manner, I'd be in if I were licensed, I'd be in violation of my state's code about gender just for being able to talk about it. And you're supposed to be a mandatory reporter, so you're kind of on edge all the time about what they said, and am I supposed to report this or that? There's all these requirements. It becomes this stifling system because you no longer have the flexibility to move around obstacles yourself. And um,
Mhm.
I don't know. That I guess I'm just thinking of sort of the birds as a metaphor for that.
Yeah, I think that works really well. I mean, I was saying before before we got on to Christine that I just, having just graduated, I mean, I'm 35 now, and I went back to school later in life after having a whole other life and studied psychology, got a bachelor's in psychology at Columbia, and it was really great. But I wanted, I think fundamentally I want to help people somehow. I was interested in the idea of doing clinical psychology, and then thought to myself, well, that would be a very long time, and by the time it'd be sort of viable, probably be well into my 40s, and which is fine. But you do a cost benefit at some point in your life, and that's just a personal thing. But then I thought, counseling, mental health counseling, and looking at the different programs, I and hearing people talk about, like, knowing a bunch of counselors going through these programs, um, I'm faced with like a fork in the road. It's like there are um, wonderful entities like Critical Therapy Antidote and others out there that give me hope should I desire to go into one of those programs, but into a counseling program formally to become licensed. But I don't know. I also I sense that kind of what you're saying, it's so contrived, and I don't know what I would, maybe it's me being cynical and a little, maybe a little negative about it, but I just don't know. Maybe you could, anyone here could tell me, I mean, get some hope, but it's like, I don't know how, I don't know if it at this point aligns with me. I just feel like the industry or the profession is really struggling to define itself again, or to redefine or detach from the a part of it that it has taken over. And I don't know. I mean, it's an open question. I have no idea. But your sentiments are things that I feel internally all the time when I think about this. Um, the cost of it, the time. Um, yeah, I struggle with that.
Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Jennifer, Christine, what are your thoughts?
Well, one thing I would say in favor of pursuing a degree in the mental health field is I don't think we should leave the field to therapists that have become ideologically captured. I think
Yeah.
that it's really awful what's happened in the field. And there are therapists out there that haven't been ideologically captured, but most of them are older.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think it would be great to have a fresh crop of students who really have the very strong orientation that they are there to do clinical work and to help clients as individuals with their very highly personal, unique issues versus viewing clients as an avatar for their race or gender or some particular group. So I think it's still really important that we produce what I would consider to be real therapists, not people that are trying to convert their clients or turn them into activists.
I love that.
Yeah, and I
So
think
that gives
if
me hope.
you, yeah, and if you go into private practice, I think some of the issues that are cropping up are in like clinics or places where you get your clinical hours. Those tend to be more ideologically captured than maybe if you're off in your own private practice, where you can advertise your services and yourself in the way that you want to, how you
Mm,
want people to perceive you, and what you're able to bring to the process for people. It takes a while to get to that place to where you can like fully survive on that, but it is definitely doable and it's important. Um, but I think the process of getting there is where there's a lot of challenges. I mean, most of the people that probably come to our consultation groups, I mean, several of them are still in the process of, getting hours. And so they're being supervised, and their supervision or the location that they're, serving their hours, doing their hours for, are so captured that they're having
mm,
trouble, finding good, clear-headed, grounded, sane clinical supervisors that are operating within, what mental health is supposed to be about. But I think if you can kind of get through that and get to the other side of it, um, I agree. I don't think we should run from it. And I left. I mean, that's not a secret. I've been very open about that publicly. I left teaching and I left seeing clients. I just left altogether. And I did some different work and consultation for different organizations, because I just, to me, I was very concerned that I was going to have a lot of ideologically captured clients, and that was, I had
mm,
already had the students, and that's what made me leave as a professor. I didn't want to then get the clients too. So I did actually step away, but I don't think that's for everyone. And this question has come up a lot. Some people say, leave and be public about it. Some people say stay in the profession, work within it to create some level of change. Some people say stay as, as an option, a sane option for people who are looking for that and stay under the radar, or speak up in your program. Like there's a million different, ways that you
Hmm.
can look at that and what's worth it to you in the end, and where you really see yourself, where you want to be, what that kind of end goal is. Even if you don't know what it is now, I do think there are benefits to not leaving. But it's going to be very individual. And for me, I wasn't able to separate that very well. And I really struggled with the clients that
Oh
were
wow, yeah.
captured. I struggled a lot. So um, I also had some other things going on in my personal life that I won't get into again here.
Mhm.
So it was sort of the perfect storm for me to say, I think I just need to exit this right now.
I'm
Um,
curious. I'm curious. I know we're coming up to the next hour, but I'm curious about the clients. That's really interesting. I've often thought about that, how you know, therapists, psychologists, counselors, whatever, people who are seeing clients, how that interaction of them being captured, maybe expecting something specific from you. It was that kind of
mhm.
it, that they were expecting more validation on its face
Yeah,
rather than yeah.
affirmation rather than
Mm,
exploratory or exploring. The model is, at least in California, and our board of ethics, which I'm an MFT, so I'm licensed under the state. I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not licensed under the national board. um, Ethically, we're supposed to be, at least for gender affirming care, we're supposed to be providing that rather than
wow.
exploratory uh, care for those who are coming in with gender dysphoria. So that was frowned upon. Actually, we're recording an episode soon on the podcast for CTA of a woman who lives in California, and the Department of Child and Family Services actually took her child. The child's trying to transition, and the mom's against it, and the mom refused, like, to provide, to use the pronouns and to provide the
Mhm.
puberty blockers. And the county stepped in and said, well, you're not supporting your child. This is abusive. I think the child's threatened to end their own life if the mom doesn't do it. I mean, it's gotten really kind of,
Oh my.
yeah, no, not pretty. So
Oh
having said
God,
that,
that's terrifying.
yes, I mean, that's what scares me, is that I see it and it's real. It's not something that's
Hmm.
like an urban myth.
Hmm. Hmm.
But again,
Who would
in
have thought
California,
20 years ago that people would be losing custody of their children for refusing to mutilate them or permanently damage their health
I
through
know.
hormones? I mean, it's so almost science fiction-y that you just feel like it's not possible. That's a living nightmare. I really think that eventually we're going to look back on the medicalization of gender dysphoria the way we look upon lobotomies now.
Yeah, I
mhm,
agree with you
mhm.
on that.
I
I
think
think
it's
we're
the
almost
great
touching
shame
that.
of our field. I just think it's an
Yeah,
absolute catastrophic failure of the medical field and the mental health field.
Yeah.
absolutely
There's
agree.
some really great comments here in the chat. 97 cents says, consider in general, would you want an unlicensed anesthesiologist? And then some other comments. There's a side conversation here. A student of rhythm says, comparing anesthesiologists with lactation specialists is apples to oranges. And there's a whole talk about this. And where's the other one that I wanted to read? Um, basically, yeah, okay, student of rhythm says 97 cents. You're pointing out a general principle. I know an herbalist who laments the state of that scene. How do you know who the good ones are? And I think that's a great question, because how do you know who the good ones are? That's what the license is intended to state. But
Hmm.
it's the good one is being decided by, this is the thing, it's being decided by a committee
Hmm.
somewhere that is imbued with that power by the government, and we put our faith in the idea that those experts are assessing the things that the public would want, that would really be in our
Right.
best interest. And so I hope that's the case with anesthesiology. I really do. But when it comes to these sort of pseudo medical things, like helping a woman who's breastfeeding a newborn, you can medicalize that, but there's also something that's a little bit more individual and human about that than just some this is the dosage and this is how many hours she'll be under, or, here's the side
Right.
effects. There's,
Right.
and it's very similar with counseling. There's something more of an art of human connection going on there than a rote medical process. And so when we put all of our faith in those letters after a person's name or that license number, we're putting faith in a system to imbue those credentials upon the right people. And we're going to continue this dialogue. We're going to stop the stream right now and welcome our Soligram members in. Thank you all so much for this chat. Anthony, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Can you tell everybody where to find you before we stop the stream?
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun. So you could find me, Anthony Rispo on Instagram, just one word, Anthony Rispo, and my podcast, who I co-host with a friend named Clay Smith. It's Discourse Lab, but it's _Discourse Lab. You can find that on Instagram too, and then you could find everything else on my Instagram page. So yeah,
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. It's such a delight to speak with you. And if I could ask everybody
likewise.
for a favor, when you go to your podcast app, if you find ours, the Radical Center, and we've got the Soligram playlist under that, as well as my other playlists, give it a good review. And I will try to be better about updating it more regularly. I had let that slide for a while, and I'm just trying to get all caught up. So I'll be catching up there. And if you can go and give it a good review, I would